What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. It is going to be an absolutely fantastic time. We made it to Hump Day. We're going to have some beers and have some conversation. We'd love to know what you're drinking. Throw it in the comments. If you got a question for us or something, interject on one of the topics we've got here. Throw it in the comments as well. We are going to rock and roll right on here and get going on with the show. Guys, you ready?
Yep. Yes, let's do it.
Okay, good. Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for joining us, hanging out, having a beer, and some great conversation. I am Tim Dennis, Brian Hewitt. How you doing?
I'm not bad. I'm a little tired. I spent a lot of time driving this weekend. I went for a long weekend away, and it's supposed to be restful. I realized that most of my time was spent behind the wheel, getting from place A to place B. And I realized, like, I'm actually really beat today. I should have taken another day off, but I didn't.
You should have let Jesus take the wheel, and it would have been more relaxing for you.
I was in Florida, and I think he's closer to Florida, so he might have been able to grab the wheel for me occasionally.
He's keeping an eye on things there. Yeah.
But otherwise, good. How are you,
Good, man? Good. I'm good, man. I'm good. Been busy. So I took off Friday, took a long weekend, with the holiday and that. And that always throws me off, having like a Friday that feels like a Saturday. From Thursday night on, I was off track. I forgot to put my trash cans out because I was off thinking the next day. It's just been total chaos. So I'm back on. It took me a while to realize, what day it was and everything. But I guess I'm as together as I can be. So that's really all you can ask out of me at this time.
At least we're halfway through the week already. This is my Monday. It's half done. Thank God.
halfway there. That's right. You were off yesterday as well. So
yep.
Yeah, for those catching this as the podcast releases, we are recording this on Wednesday. So if you get confused about Brian talking about today, Monday,
I forgot.
Yes.
So. Yes, that's right.
Nate, how the heck are you doing?
Doing well. It's already been kind of a week, and I guess we're gonna have to keep Brian around, despite
he needs us.
A little, he does need us.
Though. Yeah,
you're right.
He's still got a tinge of his cold. You can hear it in his throat a little bit, little scratch there. He was ill last week. So
yeah, I don't. It's hanging on. I feel like 100% fine. It's just I'm gunk, just gunky.
I've had a couple. You know what? I had a couple days where I was like that in the morning, where I was just totally. I'm like, it must be the pollen change. I looked on the little pollen count thing, and it said that mold was very high. So I guess that got to me, but just had me totally plugged up. And Brian, with our newfound passion for fragrances, it's terrible to have a stuffy nose. You can't smell your new stuff there. So
I was smell blind, and so I was just spraying fragrances like a layperson. I'm like, oh, that looks fancy. Let's put that on.
Interesting note, kind of tying the two together, because we did get a little bit of feedback saying you guys need to shut your mouths about perfume. Yes. This is a beer show, so respect. We understand that. We got off kilter a little bit, but there's a brand called By Killian out there, and Killian is Killian Hennessy of the Hennessy Cognac family. So, and he does some fragrances, and as part of his fragrance series, he actually has one called the Liquors that he does. He's got one called Angel Share, and he's got apple brandy on the rocks, and there's vodka on the rocks. And I've got a couple of little samples. I got the apple brandy on the rocks and the Angel Share, and they're nice. The Angel Share is like a spice. It's supposed to be cognac, they say in the note, but to me, it's just kind of a whiskey note. I don't know that I specifically get cognac, but I'm not that well versed in cognac, but a nice spicy scent. So it's pretty nice.
Did you put a little dab on your tongue to see what they taste like?
I should have, man. They come in that you I know if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see this, but they come in these little carafes that looks like a liquor decant.
Yeah, like a fancy decanter.
This isn't the standard packaging for them. This is a special release thing that they did.
Okay, got it.
That's
pretty neat.
Pretty cool little packaging. Anyhow, moving right along. Even bigger and better news, guys. It's September, and I think we all know what that means. It's time
cooler
to
weather.
Get into. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. It's, it could still be hot. I know a lot of people talk about the cooler weather being more appropriate for the fall beers, the Oktoberfest beers, but mine's by the calendar, Nate. Mine's by the
Hmm.
calendar. You get past September 1st, and I started off with a little local beer. Had some this weekend called Firebend from Six Bridges Brewing. Shout out to Clay and the crew there. A good time. So I messaged him and let him know that I was breaking in the Oktoberfest season with one of his beers, and they've got a new packaging for it, new can for it, and it's got like the blue and white,
Ooh.
Oktoberfest theme and that. And that tying into today. Brian, have you broke into Oktoberfest yet?
I haven't.
You still haven't made it yet, huh?
Well, unless you count a Dunkel, which I'm drinking right now. So
Okay. All right.
we'll talk about in the beers of the week.
Yeah.
Technically, that would be an Oktoberfest if it was served at the Oktoberfest, and at one point in history, it was the Oktoberfest style, but
Yeah.
it's not an Oktoberfest beer or a fest beer. So I have not had either yet. I haven't felt like it. It's been warm, so
Too hot, huh? Okay.
yeah.
Well, I have air conditioning here, so I can keep it cool enough to make that appropriate.
My strategy was to like introduce the season with fest beers for the first couple of weeks when it's still warm.
I
And
know.
I haven't come across a fest beer yet, so
You better get on it.
I would drink a fest beer right now if I had one, but I do
All
not.
right.
So I'm drinking a Dunkel.
Okay. Nate, how about you? Have you got into the season yet?
So I have. So on September 1st, I went to a local wing and beer bar that is people from the Georgia will
Taco
recognize
Mac?
Taco
Yeah.
Mac,
All
and
right.
so
Taco Mac,
they
right?
feature a different brewery every month and have 4 beers featured as their brewery spotlight of the month. And this month is Sam Adams, so I had a Sam Adams Oktoberfest on
All right.
September the 1st, and then we'll talk about it in beers of the week. But I'm
We're
drinking a
getting moving right
Terrapin.
along, huh?
Yeah,
All right. Cool. Well,
yeah.
you know what? I think that's a perfect
Let's get
time
after it.
to get into beers of the week. Guys, I'll get us rolling. I've got a fest beer here. I have a Sierra Nevada fest beer, and this is a collaboration they did with Gutmann, as I'm going to assume is the way it's pronounced, a German brewery, Brauerei Gutmann, fest beer style Oktoberfest. So getting into this right now, I'm going to be honest that I think this is okay. I think I've had better from Sierra Nevada, and there were really good reports on this year, but I just think this is okay. I will say that I think the Firebend that I had from our local brewery was better on this, but it's good. I just expected a little more out of it.
How are the hop levels? Because Sierra Nevada has been known to throw a little extra hoppiness in there,
It's a
maybe
little hoppier.
exceeding what you might expect for style.
It's there. I don't think it would be necessarily outside of style, but I think it's probably on the upper end, of what they've got there, definitely. But that's it. That's my beer of the week. Nate, how about you, man?
So from our advertising partner, Terrapin Beer Company, I've got their Oktoberfest. So I am getting after a little of the fall flair and fun with that.
That sounds nice. That sounds nice. Brian, even though you don't have an Oktoberfest on the list, what are your beers this week?
So I got warmed up with a Carib or Carib. I'm not sure. I've never known how to say the name of the brewery, but
Okay.
Carib Lager, which is a quote supposedly, reportedly the favorite brew of Trinidad and Tobago. I had that down in Florida on the coast, and it was quite enjoyable. And so I brought a bottle or two back with me to enjoy here, and I thought it would be a great way to warm up. Right now, I'm drinking Bierstadt Lagerhaus's Dunkel, which is a Munich Dunkel, and it's quite nice, as you might expect from a Bierstadt beer. I've never seen it before. I picked this up when I was down in Florida as well at a great package store. And when I get done with that, I'm going to get into an Orlando brewery, Hourglass Brewing's 2 Million Bees and Some Hops. It's a New England DIPA with double IPA, I should say, orange blossom honey, a whole bunch of it that was made by presumably 2 million bees. I think
Bees?
Yeah, indeed, bees. Yes.
Okay. All right. Brian, talking of Florida and your travels and that, did you find any new or exciting breweries down there?
So I didn't have a ton of time to make the rounds and check out new breweries, but I did do a little quick internet sleuthing around, and Hourglass Brewing came up as pretty highly recommended as a place to go. I was a big fan of Dead Words, I believe, but they unfortunately are no longer with us. They closed earlier this year, and I missed them by a little bit. But Hourglass was high on the list. I'd never been there. Good little spot. I had their industry standard IPA, just a hazy IPA, is quality. I picked up the beer I'm going to be drinking later on with the beers of the week from them. I think I had a little sample of that and a little sample of something they did barrel age. I thought everything that they did was quite nice, and I would definitely recommend stopping by and checking them out. It was a quality place. I also found a great little a tap room bottle shop type of thing, it not too far away from Hourglass, called the Commission Beer Chamber. Man, that was a cool place. The owner has a playlist that is all like old 90s hip hop, and it plays the whole way through. And they were playing like on a little TV. They were playing Office Space in one little corner, and they had just a killer tap list like Finback and a bunch of other like really fun things. And they had several coolers full of really interesting beers that you could take away or drink on site. I finally bought a bottle of Cantillon that I did not immediately open up on site. So I own a bottle of Cantillon for the first time ever, which was pretty exciting. So I don't think I've even seen it on the shelf.
Have you never even had it out places and stuff, huh?
Oh, I've had it out places. I've had it where I've just ordered it. I've never actually been able to buy a bottle and take it home and put it in my cellar. So now I have checked that off the list. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but like it was significant. I'm like, well, I can't not get this. So I got that, and I got some other fun beers there. Cool place. I mean, yeah, I had some fun there. I had some fun. There's a bunch of good places. I wish I had more time, but that's about all I have to really report of any significance. So
yeah. Okay. So talking the Oktoberfest beers, we see over here the two main ones that we look at are Fest beers and Marzens. Nate, are you team Fest beer or team Marzen? Or team equal opportunity?
I think I'm more team equal opportunity.
Okay. All right.
Because I enjoy Pilsners a little bit more than lagers. I am
you're not allowed to say that. Pilsners are lagers, Nate. So please choose your words carefully. What are you trying to say here?
Because I like a lighter lager more than a heavier lager.
Okay. All right.
I think even though equal opportunity, I think I tend more towards a Fest beer than I do a Marzen.
Okay. All right. Brian, how about you?
It really has to do with I think it has to do with the weather and how I'm feeling. There are definitely times where an Oktoberfest is a Marzen is the only way I'm going to go. That's like the one I really want. And I think right now I'd be more inclined to enjoy a Fest beer, but that window is closing, and there'll be a time where all I'm going to want is Marzens.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's I like them both, but I lean towards the Marzen on mine, and I don't think there's enough of a major difference to where. And Brian, I'll go back and I'll say I support your seasonal method of beer consumption there. So
yes,
I would support the Fest beers till mid-September, switching over to Marzens there. But I will also allow, once we get past September 1st, enjoying either style equally there. And I don't think there's a huge enough jump from one to the other, really. It really depends on which one you get. But for the most part, I just like the slightly deeper, richer flavor of the Marzen, which is, good for me. But I'm not mad at a good Fest beer in the least. That's for sure.
By the time we usually we've done the Oktoberfest show in the past, I'm into that, and I'm really fully appreciating. And usually the Marzens, usually they play better, though. Every now and then we have that like home run of a Fest beer that comes out of nowhere and just like, man, that was a killer. But historically, I think I've generally favored the Marzens by that point in time. So
okay, yeah, good stuff. We've been slacking, guys. I actually realized this a couple days ago, but you were talking about the Oktoberfest show. We haven't planned that.
No, that's right. We haven't. No,
we've been pretty steady with that for 6, 7, 8 years now.
Yeah,
we've done it, but I don't know. Are we going to miss it this year, guys? Because there's a beer fest coming up, and I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later.
We need to talk.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yeah, good times, a good few months of beer ahead for the beer fans, any way you look at it there. So, Brian, beer stats, always fun to look at beer stats. Like we said, we just got through the Labor Day holiday recently, and Brewbound is always good about sending out some details on that. But what do we know about beer stats for the Labor Day weekend?
So we know based upon some surveys that were taken leading up to it. So according to and this is from Brewbound, but they're checking out or aggregating details from a consumer research firm named Numerator. 76% of shoppers said they planned to purchase beer for their Labor Day weekend festivities, assuming they followed through with their plans to buy beer. That made beer the most popular alcoholic beverage at Labor Day parties this past weekend. Last year, the week leading up to Labor Day was the third largest week for beer sales, with volume increasing 26% compared to an average week. Numerator also says that over 75% of consumers who are planning end of summer parties that include alcohol will be buying beer, which is way ahead of spirits, wine, hard seltzers, and canned cocktails. Each one of those categories is roughly around 40% of the consumers saying they would get some of those. Beer is even bigger with Latino shoppers, 87% of which said they plan to purchase it for Labor Day Labor Day party celebrations. Yes, those things, compared with 76% to general respondents all across the board. If last year was any indicator, grocery stores will be the big winners this past weekend. In 2023, grocery store beer sales were up 42% compared with an average week. So it should have been a phenomenal week for beer. We don't have the actual real numbers yet as to how they did last week.
Okay, these are the projections based
Yes.
ahead of Labor Day. So we'll definitely have to see if we can follow up with the stats of what actually happened there. But, the beer stats and how beer is doing, it's really hard to get a read on it because
Yeah.
you get conflicting info. This is down, now it's up. I guess overall we look at it across the board. Once we put all the data together, the projections and all that, it's down in general. Not saying that people aren't having a good time and enjoying them on Labor Day and 4th of July and what have you. But I guess it's those times in between that maybe they're taking it a little bit easy.
I think that people just don't drink and they don't enjoy beer in statistically convenient ways. They don't
Right.
they don't
Yeah.
segment their drinking and their enjoyment of these things in ways that can be easily tracked and made into spreadsheets and graphs and charts. So
That's very
that's
inconsiderate of them.
yeah. If you could if you could get more structured with your enjoyment of beer, so we can do a better job of counting it, that would really be appreciated.
Yep. And Brian, impacting beer sales and all that, we talked about it last week that beer prices were rising ahead of inflation and rising higher than other things.
Yes.
But you've got some info this week on why those prices may be rising.
Yeah, we don't always get into the why of it. We hit on it, and it's easy enough. People say, "Oh yeah, it's just inflation." You could leave it at that, but there's a little bit more to it than that. So I got this information from AmericanCraftBeer.com. They did a pretty good job of breaking it all down. I haven't seen it written out like this before. To start off with, the cost of raw materials like hops, grain, and fancy adjuncts have all gone up in price. Some of that's due to inflation, but not all of it. The war in Ukraine is a factor here as well, especially with the grains. So that's pushed up and actually with some other costs as well that are in a different section here. Packaging costs have spiked. The aluminum market has been hit hard by the global supply chain disruptions that we've seen, combined with increased demand. Everybody's looking for aluminum to can things. Energy costs have gone up as well. This affects the production and distribution of beer, and that as well has been affected by the war in Ukraine. So I know energy prices have gone up as a result of that. Labor costs have been driven up by inflation. Do you remember the shortage of workers following the pandemic shutdowns? Pay shot up considerably to get people to actually go back to work because people had saved up and they were just like, you know what, I'm not into it. I'm enjoying my time off. So, and I don't think those rates really ever came back down. So that went up, stayed up, and then we had inflation on top of it. Breweries end up passing along the increased cost to their customers, but usually not all of it. They got to swallow some of it because people would stop buying their beer due to the price. So what are the consequences of these skyrocketing costs? The financial strain at the brewery means less experimentation and less innovation, and a greater focus on core beers that consistently sell, or just beers that could be produced more inexpensively. So they may be looking for cheaper grains or cheaper recipes or just less fun adjuncts. So that's a thing. And consumers are also shifting to cheaper mass produced beers as a way to cut costs. Maybe like me, you might occasionally reach for a budget friendly beer like Bitburger, a little bit more often. Uh,
Carib.
yeah, or Carib, and that's Carib was just because I was down there. But you know what? I'm not angry at it, and I'm thinking about getting more.
That's fair.
It's just
All right.
as an alternative to a more expensive and really well made craft lager. But I mean, when everything's more expensive, you start looking at little ways to cut back. So yeah, that's what we're looking at here. There's a lot going into it, and it's tough. It's hard out here for a brewery.
It is. It is. So I think I know the answer from this crowd here. Would you rather drink more? See, I don't even think there's a point in asking this, but maybe to the broad consumer base there is. Would you rather drink more of a slightly lower quality beer or less of high quality beer? Like, if it is it a point to where I don't drink enough continuously for budget to play into it that much. So since I drink fairly infrequently, I'm not watching it. Now, I used to be to where I'd have a 12 pack or more over the weekend, and if I was grabbing beer like that, I may be more cost conscious about it. If I could get a 12 pack of hams for whatever the price of 12 pack of hams is compared to $30 or $40 maybe for a 12 pack of craft, that might make a difference. But how much, Brian, how much does cost impact your purchasing decisions these days?
It's not too much. It's usually me looking at the cart and seeing what I got in there and doing like some quick math in my head and realizing like, oh, this got really expensive. Like, I do want a bunch of different beers and I want something light. You know what? I could swap out something really quick and throw a Bitburger in there and then bring that price back down a little bit and then, feel a little bit better about myself and, in still enjoy my beer. So it's not, I'm not getting cases of stuff typically. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
If I am, I did it like the Miller Lite. I got a 12 pack of that or something like that, purely so I'd
For
be
your
able to make
spaghettis.
spaghettis for several weeks on end, and I
Fair.
still have 3 or 4 of those left that I haven't gotten into yet. So, and that
All
was
right.
was for a specific reason. So I say that, mixing in the Bitburger because it's inexpensive, and I do kind of like that because it does, make your cart a little less expensive when you're cashing out.
Well, you
But
just
for the
plain
most part,
enjoy the beer too, right?
I also
That
really like
Bitburger.
the beer, and
Yeah.
there's not really a big selling point on, that's not the cost isn't the big selling point there. So, yeah.
I think that is the thing for me when it comes to cost is it doesn't necessarily play into exactly it doesn't play exactly into my purchasing decisions, but if there's a beer I like that's less expensive, I'm very much on board with that. Like I like Ginny Cream. And if this was something to where it's a lawnmower beer or what have you, then definitely something like that. If I'm going somewhere where I know I'm going to be out, it's going to be hot, I'm going to be sweating, I'm probably going to drink several beers. I'm not choosing, an imperial stout there. Even though stouts are for summer,
Yeah.
I don't want to drink 6 of them out by the lake on the weekend necessarily.
There are the occasional times where I do feel like I want to drink in more quantity, and this usually comes around Oktoberfest, where I want to fill up a stein with some form of lager, and I just want to knock that back. And so I'll just get whatever Oktoberfest beer it is. But if I was thinking about drinking in more quantity and not, I guess the focus would be something that I don't want to waste. There are certain beers I want to think about when I drink, and there's other beers that I just want to drink some beers. And it doesn't happen that often, but I could see a time that being a time when I might get a big variety of like Bitburger or get a 6-pack of hams like I did recently. I got the hams just because I like hams, but
Because hams, it's the beer refreshing.
yeah, it's the beer refreshing.
Sky Blue Waters, Brian.
Absolutely. From the land of Sky Blue Waters. Yeah. So if I'm thinking about like hot weather and I'm just kicking back and I don't want to think about a beer and I don't want to feel like I'm wasting the beer by drinking it, I've gotten beer for that reason too. It's just something I can brainlessly drink and enjoy. So
Nate, how about you? How much does budget play into or cost play into your beer budget?
It generally does not. I I have like a well-stocked stout cellar, and I've spent a pretty penny on a lot of that stuff. And in terms of my daily drinker, I'll go out to my local beer shop, which is a Stout Brothers, and I'll get a mixed 4-pack of 16-ounce tall boys, and I try to be cost conscious, but at the same time, if something looks good and I know it's quality, like you, Tim, saying, if it's quality, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for it.
Sure.
I'd
Yeah.
rather drink less and I'd rather drink less high quality beer than drink more of a lower quality beer.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Now, I'll say that I have limitations. There's been times there's the Eclipse series of beers, 50/50
Hmm.
Eclipse.
Yeah.
And another one great one that I can't believe I'm forgetting, Cascade, that
Hmm.
came to Georgia. Brian, when you used to go back out to Oregon, I love the fact that you'd bring some Cascade back with you
Oh yeah.
before we got those here in Georgia. When they got to Georgia, I grabbed a few right out of the gate, but I mean, we're talking $30+ for some of these bottles. And that to me is a large amount for a bottle of beer. I know to a wine drinker, dropping $30 on a bottle is nothing, but I'm not a wine drinker. I'm a blue collar beer guy here. So, 30, 40, those bombers, the 22 ounce, do they still say bombers? I haven't heard that in forever. I just think the format's not as popular as it used to be.
Hmm.
But the 22-ounce bottles that the Eclipse beers come in, some of those in some places would get up to $50. And it was really tough for me to spring that kind of money on a beer, especially since, Brian, you and I were down at a beer bar here in Atlanta. I'm forgetting the name of the place. It's in Benteen Park. Oh God,
Pent-
Red's Beer Garden.
Oh, Red's beer.
We were
Okay,
down
yeah,
there,
yeah.
and they have beers that you can buy package and open them right there and drink them there. And they had an Eclipse. And I'm like, man, it's been forever since I've had this. Let's grab one and get it. And I think it was $35 if I remember right. It wasn't great. And
Wow.
if I'm Brian says, oh, like he's surprised. You drank it too, man. So
I
you were
I
there.
vaguely
So
remember this. I don't
it's
recall. Yeah.
it's great having memory lapse because then you can experience something and be surprised by it later too.
Right?
So it's
I
handy.
get the maximum enjoyment out of
Yeah,
everything by forgetting about it and
that's
then being
it.
reminded about it. It's like
51st beers.
that's right. Exactly right. Well, I did buy
Yeah,
the bottle of Cantillon I bought was
yeah,
not inexpensive. It was $45, and
yeah.
it was the Cantillon Creek, and I don't regret buying it at all, but yeah, it's not something I would buy all the time.
Sure.
I if that were on the shelf every week and it was easy enough to do, it would be rare that I got it. And part of the reason I sprung for it, the same reason I would spring for the beers I was bringing back for Portland, is you don't have that opportunity. So it's
Right.
worth
Right.
spending the money to grab that beer and bring it back because then you've got it. You're not going to see it again anytime soon. So yeah.
And that's another point, Brian, that occasionally, if it's a brand I know and trust, it's going to be excellent. Dry Fontaine puts out some special editions of their beers at time, and they had one, I believe it may have been on wine must, on grape must,
Oh
but it was
yeah.
like a $65 bottle for a 750, something along those lines. Actually, Brian, I think you're the one that bought that one. I was going to say I bought it. I think you bought it. I just helped drink it.
Yes.
It was very, very, very good, but I think we both agreed it wasn't that much better than their basic Oud Goose, which is fantastic. So,
It was an
hey, this
interesting variation for sure. I remember
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this beer is great, but it's not twice the price great there. So, if there's something, we bought a vintage bottle one time, Brian, at Porter Beer Bar, and it was a 20-year-old bottle that I think we paid 60 or 65 for that as well. And it was a phenomenal experience. So, if there's something out there, it's expensive, but I trust that it's going to be great, then I'll do it. And I'm not going to do that every single week. I'm not going out every week and buying $65 bottles of beers that you need to pour from a basket. Be nice. That sounds fun. It sounds enjoyable, though.
I probably should do that more often because I've got a basket for pouring beers that doesn't get used
Mm.
very often. So
Break out that lambic basket, man. That's so much fun. The old pomp and circumstance of drinking lambics is such a good time.
I should really do it with anything that has sediment in it, because you get some
Do it with a
farmhouse
2 liter
beers.
of Coke. Just make use of your. Can't you see that? Put you some ice water in a carafe or something, and sit down to dinner with the wife, and be like, "Can I get you some water?" But I know your wife, and she'd be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So
I like the the 2 liter of Coke, and I have
yeah,
a snifter, but full of ice.
of
Just
course, absolutely.
pour that in there.
Yes,
That's fantastic.
delightful. White towel over one arm there as you're
Oh
pouring
yeah.
it into it. It's going to be delightful, just delightful. Oh,
So
Brian, some news. Brewery out in Seattle. Breweries are just having a tough go, man. We're seeing them closing left and right. And a Seattle brewery recently got taken out by a fire, but they're putting a GoFundMe up. They are trying to rebuild. They want to come back from the ashes.
Yeah, that's right. On August 13th, Rooftop Brewing in Seattle, Washington was devastated by a fire that started a neighboring business. And I think, from what I gathered from the article, it was a coffee roastery. So that makes a lot of sense. In addition to the damage done to their brew house and their tap room, they lost nearly all of their packaged beer and anything that was in kegs and produced in any way. And they lost all of their raw ingredients, so the raw materials, all their hops and their grain. As we mentioned, that's gotten quite expensive now for making more of it. So the full extent of the damage is not known yet. Still, the brewery is working with insurance to get back on their feet. In the meantime, people have been reaching out to the brewery asking for ways that they can help out. So the brewery set up a GoFundMe. The main purpose of the GoFundMe is to take care of the brewery team during the rebuilding process, and they don't know how long that's going to be. And these people are basically out of work in the meantime, and they're not bringing any money in. If you're interested in helping out, the link to the GoFundMe is gofundme.com/f/rooftop fire. Rooftop-fire, excuse me. So f/rooftop.fire. And
Dash
imagine
fire.
dash fire. Yes.
Look,
And I'll,
let me say it because it's gofundme.com/f/rooftop dash fire.
yes, there you go. That's
There we
the
go.
thing.
All right.
I'm going to share this on social media. I imagine
Okay.
we'll have
Cool.
that posted in the run of
in the
show notes and
description,
everything
yeah.
else. So,
Are you
yeah.
familiar with the brewery, Brian? Have you had
No,
anything from
I'm
them?
not, but
No.
I saw that the Washington Beer Blog had mentioned it, and a lot of people were, shocked by the situation, understandably. And it sounds like I saw pictures of the place, and I enjoyed the times I've gone up and had beer in Seattle. It's been quite a while, and I figured, you know what, they have a GoFundMe. They're trying to take care of their people. This is something we should share, get the word out, see if we can help
Yeah.
out with that. So
It's
yeah.
not like the typical, GoFundMe's of start this, open that, help me launch this. A little different situation there. So there's a lot of GoFundMe's out there, and we don't share them very often, but they're trying to take care of their people so they can get their brewery back open. So you really
Yeah.
can't argue with that, man.
Yeah,
You really
this seems
can't
like it's
argue with
for
that.
it's definitely a good cause. They're not just putting in
It's for a
another
good
fermenter or
cause.
whatever. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, Brian, I think it's time that we thank our sponsors. It's a very important part of the show. And I will start by thanking our friends at Terrapin Brewery Atlanta at Truist Park, out there, the home of the Braves, and where baseball season's winding down. We're getting into the postseason, and there'll be a World Series here that's just American teams and a couple Canadian teams, or one Canadian team, two maybe, but we'll get into that. But football season, we'll talk about that soon because that's a big thing. But no matter what's happening, football, baseball, the other football, Terrapin Brewery Atlanta is going to have some good beers on tap for you there. There's always going to be something new in the tap room. Good food there too with Fox Brothers Barbecue. So going out to Truist Park, check out Terrapin Brewery Atlanta, and make sure to tell them the beer guy sent you.
Yes, and as you know, at this point in time, summer is fading fast. Here we are in September already, but we still have a few weeks left, but we're getting down into those ideal patio temperatures, and you can make the most of it by grabbing a fine beer and a little food from a food truck at your local Truck and Tap. So there are so many great beer options at each location of Truck and Taps. This would be a great week to play a little Truck and Tap roulette and let fate decide your next beer. But if you'd like a recommendation or two or three or four, here are mine. At the OG Truck and Tap in Woodstock, I'm getting an Allagash Saison. I don't think I have to explain why I would pick that, but it's a beer that's perfect for kicking back and enjoying the great patio weather that we have right now. At the Duluth location, my eyes keep drifting back to New Realm's Tiki Like a Fox IPA Pineapple. It's a hazy IPA with a lot of words in it, and you guessed it, it's made with pineapple, so that sounds exciting. Over to Truck and Tap in Alpharetta, my pick is Three Taverns Lord Grey. It's a kettle sour with Earl Grey tea and lemon. If you've never had it before, you need to try it. It's a trip. It's been a while since I've had it, so that's why I would definitely pick it. I really enjoyed that in the past. So yeah, very
I didn't think
interesting
I'd like
experience.
that one when I heard about it. It did not sound good, but the execution was very good. Very nice beer.
Yes, quite. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going to go with Samuel Smith's Organic Chocolate Stout, because when was the last time you saw this on tap? I haven't seen it in quite a while. I know I've had it before, but it's been quite a while. And did you know that the water for this beer comes from a 250-year-old well? I found that out on the menu on the Truck and Tap website. So for all the beer lists and information about the beers that you're thinking about drinking and the food truck schedule and events and everything else, check out truckandtap.com. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, Truck and Tap. Good folks, man. We are, I think I've said this before, but we are the same age. Beer Guys Radio and Truck and Tap. We launched within a month of each other there, and we have been homies since the very beginning. So we really appreciate that they've hung out with us this long. Always a good time. We actually had, I forget the name now. I apologize, but someone messaged us on Facebook. They were from, I believe, Arizona, and they were fans of the show, and they were on business over in Alpharetta. And not even Truck and Tap at the time wasn't on the radar, but they said they just happened to park their car right in front of Truck and Tap. And they're like, I had to go in. And Brian, you talk about your Truck and Tap roulette. They said, I almost did Truck and Tap roulette, but I decided to just get me a nice flight of beer there. So it's cool.
You got to go with it. And I'm giving free mulligans to anybody. If you land on a pumpkin beer, you always get a free mulligan. So that's the one thing. You get a do-over because Truck and Tap does have some pumpkin beers. I on right now. I didn't recommend any of them.
I wouldn't be surprised that. I saw a meme today where it showed it was like a political cartoon style, just a pencil drawing type thing, but it showed a guy looking back over his shoulder, and he's got shorts and a Hawaiian shirt on and like a tiki drink with an umbrella, and he's running, and there's a pumpkin like the size of that big rock from Indiana Jones, like rolling after him. I'm like, that's about the size of it, man. That's the way it works out. We got a little update. We talked about this some last year about Wayne Wombles from Cigar City, previously Cigar City Brewing, and opening a new brewery. So he posted a couple days ago on his Facebook page, and he said he has closed down the Upcountry Brewing Tap Room in Brevard, North Carolina. Upcountry, for those that don't know, was owned by John, forgetting John's last name, of previously Terrapin Beer Company. John Cochran was owned by John Cochran of Terrapin, previously Terrapin Beer Company, and Wayne acquired the brewery from him. He said they have closed down, and they are currently in the process of renovating and rebranding. He said that we hope to reopen as Griffin and Sphinx by October 1st. That's impressive. I would love to see that. You don't usually see a turnaround that quick, but I think they've been working on things for a little while. So if they've got paperwork in place and it really is just a renovation and rebrand, that's something. And he says, if not before October 1st, if not before, he's got his social media page coming soon. He said he's very happy with the quality of beers that he's been producing on the site, and he hopes we'll join him for a pint very soon. So that's, if you're a fan of Cigar City, the things that they did there, pretty much all of the ones that are popular and well known from Cigar City, Wayne's behind those beers. So I think I expect pretty good things out of Griffin and Sphinx.
I don't recall if we had any kind of information on the kind of beers he was planning on brewing. So I don't know if if there's going to be a Hunapoo version. I
have not seen. I imagine we'd have to see something along those lines, right? I'm going to assume that
you'd think
Cigar City, Monster, whoever owns that that name. I wonder what, that's a good point. I wonder what will happen. I wonder if there will still be a Hunapoo and what it will be like.
I do. I also wonder, because he was the force behind that and the creator of it. And I get the very strong feeling, and I think everybody else does too, that they're not that concerned about the beer side of things. They're really more about, let's push our various monster beverages. So Maybe there'll be a monster Hunapoo. I don't know. I don't know how
Monster
that would work.
Hunapoo.
Monster poo.
Blue tiger or blue lemon mango infused, something like that, with all the, more caffeine and ginseng. I don't know where the line is drawn with that anymore. After the Four Loko incidents, I'm not sure exactly what you can put in alcoholic beverages anymore.
I know at one point in time there was a brewery that went out of business because they weren't allowed to put coffee in their beer, and at some point
Is
that
that
became
true?
okay. I believe so. It was
Is
something
that
Moon
not
Brewing. Was
okay?
it?
Well, see, because I don't think was it ever totally banned putting coffee in, or was there just talk of it? And that I feel like that may have been something, and I could be totally wrong here, Brian. But we'll have to see what we can do to validate this. But I feel like that may have been kind of an urban legend of the boogeyman that well, they went out of business because they couldn't put coffee in their beers, and so I'm not sure. Do you know for sure?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
around the time where Four Loko had to reformulate, and I want to say, and maybe they were doing something different. Maybe they really were putting like caffeine, and I don't know. They were
Wasn't the
doing it
coffee, it was
different.
the cocaine, Brian.
Yeah, it's just the cocaine. I know that they were fighting it, and they were trying. From the sound of it, it was a real brewery, and it was supposedly legit. And they just like, hey,
Okay.
we've been making this coffee beer. Why are we getting torpedoed? And I haven't. This is going back a long time. We're talking like 10
Yeah.
years ago, probably that I heard about this. That 10 years or
Been a
more
long
that they
time.
would been closed. So I don't know if things softened since then, or if they were really doing some other shady stuff and they were just pretending that the other stuff wasn't happening and crying about whatever was going on. So I don't know.
Well,
I can't
you're
remember.
really a one trick pony if your coffee beer closes you down. So I guess maybe if you have 1 foot, 1.5 feet in the grave, or several nails in the coffin already, that might be enough to do it.
Yeah, I wanted to say it was something Moon. It was Moon was in the name,
Uh,
not Blue Moon, but
the
some other Moon.
the LLC is Moonshot, and it's New Century Brewing Company.
Okay.
Was
What's it say about it, Nate? Tell us
I,
more. Tell
I'm
us
I'm on
more.
the Four Local Wikipedia page. Give me a moment.
Okay, we'll come back to that then. So more reason to celebrate this month, Brian, other than the Oktoberfest beers, but September is craft malt month. So we can celebrate all
oh,
the crafting malts out there. And that's another thing, Brian. We talked about like the days that we home brewed and what was available then. There wasn't a ton of craft malts at that time. Some of it was starting to come on the scene a little bit. We really didn't see a lot of it, but here in the Southeast, we have Riverbend up in the Asheville area, and they do a lot of nice craft malts. They've worked with several local breweries here. And it is an initiative of the Craft Maltsters Guild to promote the work of the guild and bring attention to the work of small malt houses and small farmers, Brian. The Craft Maltsters Guild formed in 2013, and it started with just 8-member malt houses. Today, they have over 110-member malt houses, and most of those are located in North America, but also all around the world. And, that tracks, Brian, with what we said about, or what I just mentioned about the craft malt being available when we were homebrewing. That tracks to our early days of homebrewing, 2013, 2014, that time frame there. And so the availability out there, Brian, there's a lot of benefits to craft malts, regional malts, and that, if you're getting your malt from overseas, there are tractor trailer trucks and ocean vessels and all that involved in getting the malt to you. So the carbon footprint, as they say, is huge on that type of thing. But if you're getting a malt from your state or from one state away, it's a very green thing to do if they have that available for you. So you're supporting your local farmers, you're supporting local malt houses, and you're making less impact on the climate, which it never hurts if you can do something and do that.
I think the big selling point for me is the uniqueness of the terroir. So you're getting this
Sure.
malt that's grown here under these conditions with these minerals in this soil. That isn't going to be like anything that you get like a European grown malt or stuff that comes over from, I think China has a fair amount of growing that's going on, and other places. Like, it's going to be unique here. It's going to be different here. We may have some interesting variations in the type that actually grows here, and you're going to have something that's unique. And if you're looking to differentiate yourself, it's smart to go with, a high a higher grade and a more unique ingredient going into your beer, assuming you can still afford it.
Sure. And
Yeah.
there may be sometimes there's a German malt that that's what you need for your beer.
Yeah.
That's what you want for your beer, but you don't have to stop it. But if you can work with your local maltster for maybe some of your core beers, a nice house beer or something, and use a larger percentage of that, again, there's a lot of people benefited, down the line when you support your local maltsters in any local business. But this month, September, we're celebrating that local malt.
That's right.
It's crafty, Brian. It's
It is.
crafty.
It's
Yeah.
as crafty as it gets. And I wonder
Yeah.
with the maltsters how they're from their end, what the business is like for them, because I imagine their demand is still pretty high because there's still a lot of breweries out there, and breweries are still opening even now, even when the times are tight. So I imagine the demand for malt is still very high, considering the price of malt in general has gone up across the board. So I
Yeah,
wonder how
that
good
happens, man.
the market is for them compared to the rest of craft beer on the end of production of the beer itself. I'm
Imagine
guessing
it's
it's probably
tough
not.
all around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's better off. They're better off though, at just being a producer of this thing. But I don't know. We don't have those
Yeah.
numbers.
And just to throw it out, we'll include a link to this in our show notes. But our friend Don Tess wrote an article for Forbes called "How Small Malt Houses Are Changing Beer, Whiskey, and Agriculture." We'll actually put that link in the chat on our Facebook and such for you as well. But you can check that out if you want a little bit more information on exactly what is going on there. So, Nate, I believe you said that you got us the scoop that we were looking for there on that coffee beer brewery.
Yeah, so there back in 2011, there was some controversy. Four Loko got caught up in a series of lawsuits that the FDA put against them. They were putting out a 12% ABV beverage with over 200 milligrams of caffeine,
Oh,
and a few attorneys came together and petitioned to have warning letters issued to other breweries that decided to get into combining caffeine and alcohol. And so one of those breweries was New Century Brewing Company, and that was headed up by a woman from Boston Beer Company. Let's see, her name is Rhonda Coleman. So Rhonda Coleman left Boston Beer and decided to strike out on her own to open New Century Brewing Company, and she wanted to make a light lager, 5% with only 45 milligrams of caffeine. And unfortunately, she got caught up in Four Loko scandal, got a warning letter, and decided to call it quits.
So that was her concept. She was launching a brewery to do that beer. So okay. So yeah, maybe didn't kill an existing brewery, but it sounds like it sure clipped one off before it fledged the nest there, I think, as they say.
that does sound familiar. Moonshot sounds about right.
It does,
So.
yeah. That started me. Nate, so we give proper credit. Where'd you find your information on that?
I found that on CEI.org, Competitive Enterprise Institute.org,
Okay,
and that
cool.
is posted by Michelle Minton from 2011.
Very cool. Good info. And Brian, I think talking about malts and that, Carlsberg has made a pretty bold claim here about red barley.
Yes, yes. So I got this from the drinks business. Carlsberg has claimed that its new red barley beer is healthier than a normal lager. And I saw that and I'm like, well, I'm going to have to read this. The reason they say it's healthier is the natural occurring compounds which have been bred into the barley they're using, and they're using a cross breeding strategy instead of genetic modification, because people do not like GMO stuff these days. So they're very clear that that's not involved here. These compounds are said to reduce the risk of cancer and the risk of diabetes, as well as boost your memory. So somehow, usually you drink to forget. I guess you drink this beer to remember. Uh, this isn't your typical red ale. It's not as highly hopped as what you would expect from a red ale. And it gets a lot of its red color from the inclusion of anthocyanins, which are found in grape skins. And apparently the beer is a little wine-like as well. So I guess it's kind of almost a hybrid wine beer type of situation. I'm just surprised to hear like an official health claim coming from a brewery of this size. I know that if you make a claim like this, you can get into real hot water here in the US. But that said, I don't know if this beer is actually available in the US. And I did a little bit of looking around trying to find it, and I didn't see any. So this might be a European only market type of beer, but I'm intrigued by it. And the fact that it's an unusual ingredients, I want to at least try tasting it. I don't think I buy the health claims at all.
I think whether it's true or not, I don't think you can by law make any kind of health claims with a beverage that has alcohol in the United States. I don't think there can be any claims to that. So obviously not in the US. I guess you can do what you want to, but it seems like claiming your beer is healthier and improves memory and that. So I play these little games on my phone, and there's these ads that they run. And there's this game out that's a mahjong game, and it says increases your memory, makes you sleep better, great for the elderly, will increase your length of life. I'm like, man, they're just putting it all out there. I'm like, how do they get away with these kind of claims? It's just, I guess, depending on where you are, you can make whatever claim you want to, or whatever your product is.
It's completely non-alcoholic, Tim. That's why.
Are you talking about the game or this beer?
The game is no. This beer
isn't an NA beer though, right?
No. This beer is
okay.
I want to say this is in the. I looked it up. I think it's 4 to 5% range. I don't remember the exact amount. It's fairly light too.
Yeah. All right, not a 14% stout then.
No,
super healthy. Yeah.
If they did that and they had that much more grain in there, I think how much more would it help your memory?
Healthier, more healthier.
Even it might cure cancer in people around you when you'll
drinking grow back limbs. If that's something that you're looking for there.
It's like
it's really amazing stuff. Yeah,
it'll cure your acne. You'll grow like you'll have a full head of hair when you're done with it. It'll be amazing.
Gotta have this beer.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, y'all, that about wraps it up for our show this week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Happy September, happy Fest Beer, and the kickoff, Brian, of awesome beer season. This is the best time of the year for beer, and it just keeps getting better. But if you dig what we're doing, we would love it if you would tell a friend to listen to the show. If you really like what we're doing, we would love it even more if you supported us on Patreon at patreon.com/beer guys. We'll get you a link to come hang out with us in Discord and talk about all kinds of stuff, and join the after party after the show each week. But no matter what you do, we hope that you do have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. Clear.
I saw somebody on Instagram mention drinking
Max.
Go ahead.
It looks like this may be. I don't know if I'm right on this, Tilray Max, but Max from Twitter. Max, we're not seeing your comments on Twitter. We tried to reply and chat with you, but if you're still watching the feed here, thanks. We appreciate the input. We're big fans of coffee beers and all that, but we can't reply to you. The software that we use to stream will not let us post to Twitter. And Brian, you checked Twitter, and you're not seeing it. I went in the feed there, right?
I went and took a look. Because I was just going to reply to him directly on Twitter.
I think everybody else
comments aren't there.
So it looks like we're blocked. Okay, Instagram is another one. We have to comment straight on Instagram, but we know how to do that. We can't comment to LinkedIn from our software, and we can't comment to Twitter. So it looks like Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. So if you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch, then we can see and reply to your comments. If you are watching on any of those, we'd love your comments. They'll make it to us. We just can't reply back to you from our side of things. So cheers. We appreciate everybody tuning in, chatting with us there. But with that said, y'all, we are going to wrap up the show. Again, if you're a Patreon supporter, we are going to post a link over in our Discord that you can come and have a beer and hang out with us for the after party. And have a good week, y'all. We'll see you soon. Cheers.